Hi, it's Money44 here, and today I invite you to the review of the Specna Arms SA-H12 replica from the 1 series. Specna Arms replicas from the H series are recognized as one of the best models in the Specna Arms portfolio. So it's not surprising that more replicas are added to the family in the form of H11 and the reviewed H12. The only difference between the models are in the fronts. In the H11 we find a classic wrist front, and the H12 has a front modeled on the Geissele SMR model. The replicas are available in two colors, black and as seen tan coyote. In today's review, as usual, we will see how the replica looks up close, we will get to know its features, but also check its performance and even take a look at the gearbox. But as usual, let's start with a small unboxing. The replica comes to us in a black cardboard box that can be used to carry the replica thanks to the carrying handle. Inside we'll find chrono readings from the factory, set of Specna Arms stickers, manual, a catalog, wicker spring, a key for winding the magazine, steel high cap magazine holding approx 300 BBs, ramrod, and of course the SA-H12 replica itself. Let's take a closer look at it. Let's begin with dimensions. The replica with folded stock measures about 74 cm, and with the extended stock it reaches around 81 cm. With the magazine but without the battery, the replica weighs about 3 kg. The replica is almost entirely made of metal, and more specifically a zinc and aluminum alloy like other Specna Arms models. Only the grip, the stock and the ejector port cover are made of polymer. On the Geissele SMR style front, apart from the upper wrist rail extending through the entire length of the front and joined with the upper receiver rail, there are also a number of mounting points for wrist rails in the SMR standard. In addition, the front is equipped with two slots for mounting the push-dot sling attachment points on both sides of the front. At the very front of the replica you will find a metal flash hider secured from the bottom with an Allen screw. After unscrewing it, you can unscrew the flash hider, thanks to which we'll get access to a 40mm counterclockwise thread on which you can mount standard accessories such as flash hiders or suppressors. Due to the fact that the H12 is modeled on the HK416A5 instead of a dummy gas pipe inside the front, here we'll find a dummy gas system with a short piston stroke, which in my opinion is a very nice detail. On the top of the replica you will find a removable set of folding sides, which includes a vertically adjustable front side and a vertically and horizontally adjustable rear side. A characteristic feature of the replica is the fact that manipulators are ambidextrous, like the 3-position fire selector that gives us a classic 3 setting modes: safe, single fire and continuous fire. The selector works fine, but without huge distinction between modes. The charging handle is enlarged, and after pulling it back we have access to the rotary hop-up chamber. Turn the knob down to increase the power and turn it upward to decrease it. Because the replica has a working dummy bolt, we can release it with one of two manipulators. Classic on the left and an additional one on the right. The double-sided magazine release is also present. Additionally, on the replica's body there are protrusions close to these manipulators, so as to minimize the possibility of accidentally pressing them. The trigger itself has a classic shape, but the trigger guard is enlarged so that it's more convenient to use the replica with gloves. When talking about the body, it's worth mentioning that Specna Arms boasts that the body and front have been subjected to the anodization process and powder coating after pure sandblasting of the elements, which should ensure greater durability of the painting to the image. It will turn out over time, but now I can say that the painting itself is done very good and the color, at least in my opinion, looks great. But after a few games and disassembling for the review, we can see some scuffs on the paint. Being at the body, I would like to point out that such details as dummy pins have been reproduced and the markings with its appearance resemble that of the real firearm. With the difference of course that instead of the manufacturer's logo we'll find the Specna Arms logo. The pistol grip is quite large, but its profile is comfortable and the texture improving the grip does the job, and the replica is very firm and comfortable to hold. The grip itself, in the real firearm counterpart, has a small hiding place. Due to the fact that the replica has a motor in this place, looking from the bottom you will find a screw to adjust the motor height. Going further to the back we find two sling mounting points on either side of the 5-position sliding stock. They are quite small and you have to remember it when choosing your sling. There are markings of positions on the stock guide, and thanks to the window in the stock we know exactly in which position we have the stock set. To get to the space for the battery, we have to press this lever and then slide off the plastic buttstock. The stock itself, despite the fact that it does not have a side chambers, still gives us a lot of space. I do not have a slightest problem to fit the Titan 11.1 volt 3000 mAh battery. The wiring ends with Tamiya plug. In my replica there is a slight clearance between the body halves and it's not noticeable during normal use. The same clearance is in this place can also be found in real firearms, however taking into account that in my SA-H12 such a movement is not present, I was surprised to find it in this replica. In addition, while talking to other users of this model, I could not confirm that this is something normal, so it is possible that I got a lemon. If you have H11 or H12 model, please write in the comment how it looks in your replica. The slack can also be found on the left magazine release button and the bolt release. The plate itself looks quite large, but it does not interfere with use at all, and the loose elements do not rattle during the game. Classically, the stock is also a bit loose, but just the same it's not bothersome. In the set with the replica, as I mentioned earlier, we get a metal high-cap magazine holding about 300 BBs. However, it differs slightly from classic high-caps because it does not have a winding wheel on the bottom. Winding is done with the included key that we insert on the left side of the magazine, and do not worry, if you lose it you can replace it with an Allen key. Additionally, fully winded magazine should be enough to fire all BBs. Personally, I'm not a fan of this solution. In the subject of magazines, I cannot forget to mention the compatibility problems known from H02 and H03 models. In my model, only the original high cap and G2 magazines from J&G works, thanks to the visible knob in this place. Normal M4 mags do not lock, and S-mags can be taken out the replica without pushing the magazine release. The problem can be solved in several ways. One is of course to purchase an appropriate magazine, for which you can use the list of compatible magazines on the Specna Arms website. In the description you will find a link to this list. The second way is to replace the magazine release with another one. All magazines fit perfectly when I installed a Make Release button from the SA-H12. If you use steel magazines, you can easily convert them only by bending the shell a bit at the magazine catch in this way. Now it looks as it should. You can try to modify the original release itself, but I cannot guarantee that it will help. We know what the replica looks from the outside, it's time to look inside. I will start disassembling the replica by removing the upper receiver. To do this, I take out the front pin. It does not come out completely, so we will not lose it. In order to slide off the upper receiver, I have to pull the charging handle a bit and press the bolt release button. Now the upper should slide off. After removing it, we can take a look at the barrel assembly with a rotary hop-up chamber. The barrel measures about 285 mm and the manufacturer does not specify its diameter. The rotary chamber itself is made of plastic and the hop-up rubber is quite soft and spins the BBs nicely, even in colder temperatures. Now the lower receiver. I will start by disassembling the stock. To do it, just pull the lock button the other way and the stock should slide off the guide. Using a long Phillips screwdriver, I can unscrew the bolt holding the stock guide and pull it off, and then remove the slake attachment point. Now I will disassemble the pistol grip. I start by unscrewing these two screws at the base. Then I can pull out the grip lock. Now I have access to the motor. After detaching the two connectors, I can remove it. It is a standard Specna arms unit. All that's left to do is unscrew these two screws in the grip, and it can be removed. The replica has ambidextrous selectors, so I have to unscrew them too. For it, I will need an Allen key. The left selector has a small ball, so try to not lose it. The right one does not have one. Screwing on the selectors, I suggest not to tighten them too much, because they will work very hard. In addition, it's worth giving a drop of thread glue to the thread to protect them against unscrewing by itself. The next step is to disassemble the magazine release button. For this, we will need a very small hex key, with which we will unscrew the screw in the release button on the right side. Then we can pull out the entire release button and the spring. Now I will disassemble the lock release. For this purpose I take out the pin that I can pull the lock without any problems. The button on the right side of the body does not need to be removed. I also need to knock out the trigger pin and the rear pin. An important information here. Just like the front pin, this one does not come out completely. While pulling the back pin, we can slowly pull the whole gearbox up. The shell itself is known to us from other replicas from the 1 series. The only difference is the use of the additional gears to operate the ambidextrous selector and a muzzle selector plate. The replica of course has the enter and convert quick spring change system. Although I won't call it a quick because we need to remove the entire gearbox for this purpose, but its presence is a big plus. After pressing and turning the guide by 45 degrees, we can pull it out together with the spring. The guide itself has no bearings and the spring has a regular coil pitch. After opening the shell, I was amazed by the way the gearbox is lubricated. The grease is a bit sticky, but it's exactly where it should be. There is neither too much nor too little of it. For a moment I even thought that the replica was after a service, but it's not. It comes out of the factory that way, which in my opinion is another big plus. The polymer piston has one metal tooth and aluminum ventilated piston head with bearing. The brass piston head has two O-rings and a large bumper which interestingly is not glued in but pressed in. It sits so tightly that I could not pull it out, so I wasn't worried that it will fall out by itself. The replica features a standard Type 2 brass cylinder. There is also a brass nozzle with a length of about 21 mm. Nozzle is equipped with two O-rings. The seal of this system is exemplary until we install the nozzle, which despite the two O-rings does not seal neither hidden. Extended. Additionally, it has a lot of play in the extended position. It surprises me a bit, but it's possible that it's like this only in my model. The mounted gears are in the standard 80:1 ratio, and the motor gear has 4 anti-return teeth. I must also praise the fact that the gears were shimmed very well, and despite the sticky grease, they rotate quite nicely. I would only add one washer to the spur gear. Gears are mounted on 8mm ball bearings. Let's see what performance we can expect from this replica. I chrono the replica on 0.28 gram BLD's BBs with a hop-up step for them, and on the Titan 11.1 volt 3000 mAh battery. On a stronger spring, which is normally mounted in the replica, we get an average result of around 1.44 joules, and the rate of fire is about 70 BBs per second. On the weaker spring from the set, we can expect a result of around 0.86 joules, and the rate of fire increases to just over 90 BBs per second. Time for shooting test. I will be using 0.28 gram BLD's BBs and a Titan 11.1 volt 3000 mAh battery. That day wind was blowing very hard, at times that you will see during the test. At distance of 30 meters there is no problem with hitting a target of the size of a man. Hitting from 40 meters is also not a problem, both on semi and full auto. The 50 meters test started with a blast that knocked my target over. After securing the target, I could start the test again. As you can see, the BBs have no problem with reaching the target, but I had to tilt the replica a bit to compensate for the wind blowing from the right side. In visible conditions, the maximum range is about 60 meters, but to hit a target roughly the size of a man, you'll need to fire a few shots. If you are curious how the replica performed in action, I invite you to the previous video on my channel where I had that gun on the game. In summary, the SA-H12 is a replica that can impress with its appearance, but is not without flaws. The colors of the body and the front look very good in my opinion. The fitting of some elements is a bit worse. In my model I experienced a small gap between the body halves, the manipulators and the stocks are a bit loose, but nothing large enough to interfere with use. Inside the replica we'll find a gearbox known from one series, and its pneumatics, which had a chance for a perfect seal if it were not for the nozzle. I will add that I was surprised by the mounted pistol with one metal tooth. I was hoping for a full metal rack. When it comes to performance, the replica straight off the box will not disappoint us, offering us possibility of firing up to 60 meters. I will be lying if I say that I choose this replica for a different reason than its appearance. I really like the handguard and the color scheme. And additional advantages for me are the ambidextrous manipulators or the narrow stock that can house a 2-piece Titan battery. But there is always something that can be upgraded, and you often ask me what parts I will replace in a given replica. So let's see. At the beginning I will replace the hop-up rubber to something like a maple leaf Macron 60 degrees along with the Omega knob. Maybe it will not increase the range significantly, but it should improve grouping, especially at longer distances. Going inside, I will replace a few parts of the pneumatics. First of all, the nozzle, which as you can see in my model does not keep the seal. For sure the piston for one with full metal jaw, like the SA-H are long, so that I will not have to worry that it will wear out quickly. And the piston head for something like a palm red SA-H, so as to relieve the system a bit and provide the shell with longer life. In the shell itself, I would add reducing to the cylinder window, which will also have a positive effect on the longevity of the gearbox. Due to the fact that practically every replica that I have a MOSFET installed, I will install it here too. At least something with active braking, so as not to worry about the contacts and about potential double shots in semi using a weaker spring. These are the parts that I would replace, but as you can see from my previous material, they are not necessary to enjoy the game with this replica. To be honest, after sorting out the magazine release, you can easily use it in stock, which I encourage you to do with every new replica. Contrary to common belief, after buying a replica you do not need to replace half of the parts to have fun. Let me know in the comments what do you think about SA-H12. And for now, thanks for watching and see you next time.